Hello, puppies and kittens. I had this idea that, we had a year ago, we had an election that went kind of by surprise for some of us, and disappointingly so. And I wanted to kind of recap what had what had gone down, or what gone on. I just put those two words together in my mind over the last year since. And I called Phil Ferguson and I said, "Hey, I would like to talk to you about things that Phil would be an expert on about what had happened in the last year." And he says, "Oh, you know who you should talk to? You should talk to my friend Ray Smock." So, Ray, introduce yourself, please.
Glad to be with you. My name is Ray Smock, and I'm a historian, and I, for a long time in the 80s and early 90s, was historian of the U.S. House of Representatives, and I'm a biographer of Booker T. Washington, and edited his papers for many years, and but more recently, for the last 20 years, director of a Center for the Study of Congress at tiny Shepherd University in West Virginia, about 75 miles from Washington, D.C. And I'm retired from that position now, but still keeping myself active. Old historians keep going because history keeps going. So I'll keep going as long as I can.
I imagine if you're an old historian, you become more interest in your work the more you become your work.
You know, it's funny. I think that's true. Yeah. There's just more of it,
and more of it that you like actually remember.
Yes.
So of the last year, I mean, there's a lot of different perspectives. I intend to interview a handful of people about this topic, about what has gone on, not just since Trump took office, but what has gone on in this country since the election. What would you have to say about that, sir?
Well, it's about as crazy as it can get. I've never seen anything like this. I've studied the history all the way back to the beginning, and it's not like history is easy, or that some generations have easier times than others. And if you're living in a given period of time, you probably think that's about the best of times or the worst of times. Those kind of cliches work. I think it still works that way. For some people, this is the best of times, I suppose. But politically, it's about the worst that the United States has ever had, because we have basically abandoned democracy. We have an authoritarian president who's totally unqualified. Was the first time. The biggest shock of my life, politically probably, is seeing him win the second election. You would think that the first was enough. So it's been the craziest of times, largely because of other circumstances. Trump is the culmination of about 50 years of the Republican Party going away from democracy and becoming more ideological and embracing religion and seeing politics and religion as about the same thing. It's a belief system. It's not based on policy anymore, and so for those reasons, it's very much like what was going on in Germany in the 1930s when Adolf Hitler came to power. I'm not comparing them; different times, different circumstances, but the process is the same. The process.
There are a lot of parallels.
Yes.
One point two. Now, on the message of how the parties are different. I mean, this is important, I think, to bring up, because people don't understand that things change. I have to tell people all the time that if this was the year I was born, 1962, if I was an adult in that year, I would have been a proud Republican then, because the Republican Party then was in the same position as the Democratic Party is now. And the Democratic Party was then a far right, ideological, heavily religious, heavily bigoted, prejudiced. They were more the MAGA Party back then. Would you agree with that to any degree?
Well, I wouldn't agree quite to that extent that they were MAGA, but Well, what we had up until about the 1980s, we had a four-party system. We had two parties. The Republicans and the Democrats were the dominant parties. But within each party, there were conservative and liberal wings. And the Democrats in the 1930s were largely based in the South. South was their party, and they were the segregationists. And the Republicans were the party, stole the party of Lincoln, free the slaves and get rid of segregation and racial discrimination. Uh, but they started to switch in the 1960s and 70s. And the Republican Party developed a Southern strategy. They went after all those former Democrats in the South, and they became Republicans. Both parties lost their variety of opinions, and they became more. Both parties became more rigid, and that's what we're facing now. So there's not much room for compromise. It used to be that the votes got switched a lot, and Republicans, conservative Republicans, were voting with conservative Democrats, and the leaders of both parties had to fight within their own party to get enough votes. I was there as House historian when Tip O'Neill was facing Ronald Reagan in the Reagan Revolution, and we had a majority of Democrats in the House of Representatives. But half of them would vote with the Republicans on any given issue, and they kept saying to Tip O'Neill, "You're the speaker. You have the majority. Why can't you fight Reagan more?" And he simply said, "I don't have the votes." And what do we got now? We've got a situation where the razor thin majority of the Republicans in both the House and the Senate, and so far the willingness of both parties to stay rigid and not compromise it. And look what happened just this week when we finally ended the shutdown. And I know a lot of Democrats who are saying, "Oh, the Democratic Party capitulated. Those people in the Senate are traitors because somehow if the shutdown went on long enough, things would get better and the Republicans would get blamed more." Well, that's kind of really ridiculous thinking, and not thinking of all the damage that's being done to the government. The shutdown should be illegal. They should be banned anyhow. There shouldn't be anything like a shutdown. It's a capitulation to ideology every time you have a shutdown.
I remember when Ted Cruz, who caused a shutdown himself, he made the comment that the Democratic Party were the party of the KKK. And that could arguably have been true if we were talking about 100 years ago.
That's exactly right. And they were the party of the KKK.
But every Klansman is a Republican now.
I think that's the case. There was that complete flip. And it happened over time, happened in the 60s and 70s, and that was a time of both parties. We finally gotten over unfortunately, the coalition that got us out of the Depression. And what the Republican Party is doing today is still fighting Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal. And that New Deal coalition, the one thing that it did was to represent Middle America, represent people who needed help, and that coalition lasted all the way through Eisenhower. Eisenhower was a Republican, but he did not want to necessarily buck the whole thing. Some say that Nixon, in some ways, was still not willing to overturn that old coalition. But the ideological fight today is basically still to end the Franklin D. Roosevelt idea that the purpose of government is to help those who can't help themselves, not a government that benefits the oligarchs and the super rich.
Mm-hmm. I always thought that the government had a minimal responsibility to its citizenry. That I think it's funny that I've always been accused of wanting big government because I lean left, but that I actually want less government than what the Republican Party has been after for the last few decades.
Yeah,
They want
well,
a government that's so big that it's in your bedroom.
yeah, they do, and that's not the kind of government I want. But I do believe in that the importance of government and the importance of the federal government. And there's new scholarship coming out now that even suggests that all the powers that Congress has, they don't have enough, and that the listed powers, the enumerated powers in Article 1, that tell you what Congress can do, raise armies and taxes and all this sort of thing, that they have power of the purse, that those things aren't enough. And I would argue that government should be a government of Congress as the most important branch, and it's also the branch that's most accountable to the public, with the entire House of Representatives elected every 2 years, and a third of the Senate every 2 years. So, and it's the biggest article in the Constitution. So that kind of government, if it's government that's democratically controlled by the people, I mean, I believe in a republic. So the idea that the people have the power, that power emanates best
On camera.
that power emanates best from the House of Representatives and the Senate, and but we're not there.
Regarding what you just said, let's think for a minute about an aircraft carrier strike group, which means, if I understand this correctly, that's the aircraft carrier and all of its complement, as well as, I don't know, a destroyer and a couple of other entourage ships that we sent into the Caribbean to apparently lob missiles at 18 fishing boats. We needed an aircraft carrier to take out fishing boats. And Congress, as you said, holds the power of the purse, and Congress has to determine whether has to give the permission whether to the president for if we're going to do war. But if you don't declare war, then you can still send all of our hardware against 18 fishing boats.
This is insanity. That's the only way to describe it. And you've got a Secretary of Defense who's basically a Fox News talk host. He served in the military, but he was never ranking of any kind. And Trump is the worst thing about his second term is that he's put all these crazy people around him because they're the only people he can trust. And in his first administration, he was frustrated by the fact that there were some real people there and generals who knew the military. And in the second administration, the worst thing about it that we're living through now is that the people around him are just as wacky as he is. And they're using Donald Trump for their own personal aggrandizement and benefit and ego. I mean, Secretary Hegseth, I mean, when he got up before those 800 flag officers and senior people gathered from all over the world and gave such a pathetic high school speech, it was beyond belief.
What you talk about when he had all of the heads of the military, and he gives them that thing about lose weight, you fat bastards.
You fat bastards. Yeah, and no more beards. Okay, no more beards. Except he says if you're in special forces, because sometimes those guys have to wear beards, they have to go into places where everybody's bearded. If you're a male, and even he insulted women by saying, you have to have one standard for military physical fitness, and it's a male standard. And if the women can meet that, well, then they're fine. They're welcome. It was an embarrassing and self-serving speech. It was basically he was verbally ejaculating his own power before the real authority within the military.
Yeah, I cringe so hard at that. I mean, I don't have any military experience, but all I could do was look in the faces of all of those officers and see in their expressions that they're being talked down to
Yes.
by somebody with barely more qualification than I have. So that was pretty embarrassing. Got a question comes up in the chat. So Ray, do you think Nixon designed welfare to support a gatekeeping institution to sabotage success and keep a class of undeserved dependents to blame?
Well, it's that strikes me as a little bit too conspiratorial for me.
Yeah.
That he needed a class to blame. I mean, the classes that we've had to blame, we've had since time began. And racism and xenophobia and all these other things. We've always had people that we can blame, and Nixon didn't have to invent an underclass. I mean, certainly Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, others began to exploit welfare cheaters, welfare mothers, and use that to their own advantage. And that was it was uncomfortable, but it wasn't all that successful. Donald Trump has taken all those things and magnified them, and has a compliant Congress that lets him get away with things. The idea of what we're doing now with these ICE officers on the streets, this is pure thuggery. It's right out of the brown shirts and other activities in Nazi Germany. You got masked people in unmarked cars rounding up people, and it looks like most of the people they're rounding up are not even criminals. They just happen to have the wrong color or be in the wrong place. And
I'll have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure I saw something about that roughly. Now, this is months old, so I don't know how accurate it is now, but if I'm remembering it correctly at all, but I think it was something on the order of 70% of the
that's
people that
correct.
were being grabbed
That's the latest numbers I heard.
Yeah, which is just outrageous at how we as a country allow that thing to happen day after day. I mean, why is there not outrage in the streets over it happening once, much less daily? The hell is going on?
I think there is outrage in the streets. We're seeing that with people. It's funny during the civil rights movement. One of the things that happened is that Northerners, for the first time, got a real look at what was going on in the South, with the sheriffs going around, sicking dogs on people, fire hosing people, beating them with clubs when they were out marching. People didn't see that until television came along. What we've got today, you got everybody with their cell phone, and they're filming these things and they're standing up. So I see that. I like what I'm seeing from people they're doing it peacefully. Once they start going after these guys, they're going to get it, and they're going to find themselves in some Venezuelan prison someplace. Who knows? So you do it. You stand there with the phone and you record what's going on, and this is working, and people don't like it. But Trump's getting away with it because our ridiculous Supreme Court made a
Gave
ruling
him
that somehow
immunity.
he's above the law.
Yeah.
He's actually thinks he's above the law. And once you do that, you're a dictator. You're no longer someone living in a republic.
Now, I've made what some would call an exaggerated statement that we are no longer a free country. If we don't have a guarantee of due process, and Trump is saying that he took away freedom of speech, and he's trying to criminalize people who do protests. So we can't even do peaceful protests because any protest is deemed violent just because it's a protest. And Trump is trying to sue anybody who criticizes him. He's trying to he's arresting politicians who disagree with him. In what sense, then, could we call this a free country anymore? I don't think we can.
The only way we can call this a free country is that so far Trump is, while he's doing all these things, he's not winning. It's a big, diverse country. Our institutions, some of them have caved in to Trump in ungodly ways. especially some of the higher, some of our universities. I hate that. I hate to see that. And it's because he's going after their money and after their grants, and they're caving on that. I think we're getting more backbone, and it's a bigger country than Donald Trump and his minions in Congress and his minions in his own branch. And we're going to beat them. But it's not going to be pretty.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, that's encouraging. But I am bothered at the fact that all these Republicans, we've seen these lists of people, Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, and there's a handful of others that even Ted Cruz, they all speak against Trump. They say what a horrible person he is. J.D. Vance said that Trump was America's Hitler, right? All these people say that what a terrible, unqualified, awful person Trump is. And then they line up to lick his boots and kiss his ass. And
it's for their own power. They're thinking of themselves. He's a vehicle. They know members of Congress, you know, they see presidents come and go. Some of these guys in Congress have been there forever, and they know that Trump is temporary. So what can they get out of it? They're feathering their own nest, looking for their own power, looking for their own political advantage, and it's ridiculous because it's such a blatant power grab with no ethics, with no sense of morality, with no sense of what happens after he's gone. So that bothers me to no end. It is. We're at a low ebb in political morality right now, and you need that. There's no empathy for people. I mean, some of this money that's been cut, that's goes to countries that like Nigeria and other places where vaccinations and food are saving future generations in those countries, and all of that's been cut off, and so people are dying. And there's no empathy, no sense of being part of the world.
It used to be that we just had it when I was a kid. I mean, everybody had this standard kind of a rule that we're supposed to care about other people, and we're supposed to share with other people, and we're supposed to be. People bragged when I was a kid about how America was a melting pot, you know, of different cultures and nationalities and ethnicities and so forth, that all these different people can work together and achieve great things. And I do believe that there's an advantage in multiculturalism, and for one of the reasons being that the old adage that if you have a Bible, you may be Christian; if you have a Quran, you may be Muslim; if you have the Bhagavad Gita, you may be Hindu; but if you have all three of them, you're probably atheist. So that's the way I see that. But it's frustrating that now compassion and empathy and consideration for other people is condemned as woke, right? And so being woke is according to I can't remember the guy in Florida, not Centurion. Whoever the governor of Florida is, he said that being woke was the worst thing you could be.
Yeah.
Having consideration and compassion for somebody else, for understanding that somebody else has a problem that you don't relate to because you don't have the same problem that they do, but you're aware that they have this problem, and having some concern about that, about other people's issues, somehow that's bad.
Yeah, we're about to have the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and we're going to go back to next year and do a lot of talking about that. The government's going to be doing things, and the people in various places are doing things. Scholars are doing things, but when you get back down to what was going on in the 1776, in the age of enlightenment, in an age of reason, the Declaration of Independence is probably the most woke thing that has ever been written. And Walter Isaacson's got a new book out. It's a thin book, but it's a book that it says the greatest sentence ever written. It's a book about We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the greatest sentence ever written, and that is about the most woke thing that anybody ever said.
Likewise, if you looked, when we talk about the Republican Party being the party of Lincoln, if you look at the things that the Republican Party was advocating in Lincoln's time, much of those things would be considered woke today. They're the things that the Democratic Party now are advocating.
That's right. Yeah, they've taken the word woke, and of course, what they use it as is it's partly a racial epithet as well, because the woke largely came out of Black Lives Matter movement, and so when white Republicans use it, they're basically saying it's a black thing, as well as a liberal or a socialist thing, or even a communist thing. So they've taken it and turned it into a terrible cultural negative, when it is probably this country's greatest positive.
Yeah, when you look at the Statue of Liberty, give me your poor, your tired, your huddled masses yearning to be free. What an ideal, right? This was a statement of morality that was taught to me in grade school, kindergarten, I think, when they taught me about what was written at the base of the Statue of Liberty. What a moral ideal, and we're shitting on it now.
Absolutely, and I don't know where it's going to go. I didn't mention this in my introduction, but I've written 3 books of essays on Donald Trump, and the last one being Bearing Witness to America's Worst President, which I published in 2002. These are all self-published books. They grew out of all my Facebook essays that I was writing to help myself figure out what was going on in the country, and how we had gone down the drain politically, and with this madman in the helm. So I've been writing. I got enough essays for another book, but I'm not going to publish it. But they're on Amazon, But they helped me try to stay sane as I tried to figure out all the things that were happening to this country. And we're at a really pivotal point right now with all this stuff. Congress is coming back. The Epstein matter, which is only one issue, but it is a large one that's eating at the president. And we're going to see some changes in how Congress votes, and that might be the beginning of the end for Trump.
I have to wonder, because there's just everything that would have killed a previous campaign, a previous presidency, everything that would have done that, and just Trump just weathers it all. Trump has been so far beyond the limits of any other presidency, of any other scandal, right? Paying hush money to a porn star, so out of your campaign funds. There's no finance crimes. He just commits crimes every damn day, but he doesn't. Convicted fraud, adjudicated rapist. The fuck, people.
Yeah, you can't when you go through the list like you just did. It's you wonder how you could even be sane. How the country could be sane for voting for a convicted felon in the first place. It's in the second place when he, and of course we knew about all this other stuff, and anybody that followed Trump knew what a crook he was, and what a charlatan and a fraud in all of his dealings in the real estate industry, going all the way back. And to think that you want this man to be the chief executive of the superpower of the world, and convey that, you can't think those things and still wonder if you're sane.
So Jeffrey Epstein famously described Trump as having early onset dementia a decade ago. said that he was insane, that he was effing crazy, that he was gross and even worse on up close and in person. He said that Trump was a horrible human being who did terrible things even to his friends. And Jeffrey Epstein described himself as Trump's best friend. So his best friend says that he's horrible and insane and evil and corrupt and all of. And Epstein said that Trump was the worst person he had ever met. And that's his best friend talking.
Yeah.
But we don't even need to go to that depth. Let's just go back a couple of decades to any other president that had a fraction of the issues that Trump has. You remember when we made fun of Dan Quayle because he misspelled potatoes?
Yep.
And Donald Trump thinks that the Revolutionary War soldiers secured all the airports?
Yep. All the pigeon coops in America were safe in the American Revolution. Yeah. This none of this makes sense. And the fact that the scary thing is 77 million Americans voted for him in the last election. I don't know how many of them would this time. I knew he would be strong the second time he would get votes, but I thought it would be far less than he got the first time, that the country had been awakened by his chicanery and his craziness in the first term. But I was dead wrong about that, like a lot of people were. And I couldn't believe that 77 million people would vote for him. Of course, there was, and I do believe he won the election. I mean, you could argue that it was fraud. You know, he's always accusing everybody else of fraud when it comes to elections, that he doesn't. But in this case, he did win, but there was tremendous amounts of money, more so than even the insane amounts that we normally use, that were put into Pennsylvania and other places. It worked. You got to give him credit, I guess, that it kept Trump in power. But that kind of unbridled money and people like Elon Musk, who now is about to become our first trillionaire, the fact that was given such a free hand to mess around with the government, destroy careers and destroy agencies. Yeah, it's the wrap up of a very crazy year.
Yesterday, I saw a Tesla Cybertruck that had been painted orange. And it had been painted orange with what appear to be spray cans. I know a Krylon paint job when I see it. You didn't pay a professional painter to do, because that looks like shit. That you bought 30 cans of Krylon and did that yourself. Right? I mean, I've seen cars that were painted that way. I painted cars that way. I know what that looks like. But when you do that,
I've seen a few Teslas also that had bumper stickers that I didn't vote for him. You know, and they're trying to distance themselves. So,
yeah, purchased before the plot twist was my favorite one. But when you buy a Tesla Cybertruck, first, you've bought the stupidest, the ugliest design, the least practical. It can't really be a truck. It can't truck like a truck can, right? I mean, it's just a terrible design designed by people who don't. A fucking billionaire is gonna design a blue collar vehicle. I know trucks. I've had trucks all my life. Give me a chance to build a truck. I will build you a great truck, and you will love that truck. But fucking computer nerd Elon can't build a truck. But if you buy that, you bought the Cybertruck, and now you have something that can't go off-road, something that rusts even though it's supposed to be chemically impossible, something that will cut your own fingers off, something that will shut down if it gets wet, and something that can't be, if you the types of meddlers can't be cleaned. What all the different problems? You bought the worst design vehicle that has been recalled 3 times?
Mm-hmm.
The whole line of Cybertrucks has been recalled 3 times. for different things because they suddenly accelerate? To just the truck just decides that it's going to take off without you, and it's got 4 motors and 1,000 horsepower or close to. But then on top of that, you bought that, and then you spray painted it orange. And you didn't do a professional paint job because you're a blue collar guy who bought into the billionaire somehow cares about you and you want to show your support. And you know he's orange, so you make your Cybertruck orange because Elon and Musk or Elon and Trump are somehow the same person for a minute. So then that's what you do. I just have to wonder what the fuck is wrong with that guy that would do all of that. You just bought into all of the bad, didn't you?
There's a degree of defiance in the MAGA movement that they're proud of, and that is that it's like my president, right or wrong, and if you go to an extreme just so that you can prove that you're solid MAGA, and we're seeing a lot of that. I don't know how much of it's going to play out in the next election. But right now, it still works for them. They're defiant. It's like they can't be wrong about anything, so they have to be right about everything. And there's nobody that's right about everything or wrong about everything, unless you get to that extreme level, and then you play that out. And that would account for why a guy would take a very expensive, weird car and throw stupid paint on it.
A $30 paint job. Yeah, so one of the arguments that really bothers me is when people realize that their guy lied 30,000 times in his first term and that he lies 18 times a day, every day. When they realize that and there's no way to defend that, they say both sides are just as bad. No, if you have one side that is unprecedented, the absolute worst there's ever been, then you can't say that the absolute worst is equal to even another one that's bad, but not the absolute worst that's ever been. Even if both sides were bad, they're not just as bad. You still have the Republican side still worse. So that's one of the arguments that I have, that I hate. When I hear that that the Democrats and the Republicans are just the same, I can understand why people say that all politicians lie. Hillary Clinton lied once that I was aware of that really pissed me off about the Bosnian sniper fire thing. That irritated the fuck out of me. That lie did. Bill Clinton, hated him because he lied twice that I knew of. But then how do you compare that to somebody who lies tens of thousands of times, has no concern for the truth at all? And just thinks that here's his, if he keeps repeating the narration, that it'll overpower reality.
It's almost like if you got sprayed with a hose, you would notice it and you'd say, stop that. With Trump, you're under Niagara Falls and you have no way of saying, stop that. It just keeps coming. It just keeps coming. And it's almost like that becomes the new normal. Whatever comes out of his mouth is going to be a lie, or it's going to be something where he's so uninformed that he's speaking untruths out of stupidity.
Yeah, and if he says it's fake news, then it's true, and if he denies it, it's true, and if he asserts it, it's false.
Yeah, and of course that's been the demagogue has used that technique since time began. I mean, thousands of years ago, the Greeks and the Romans knew about demagogues, and they knew about how people. The founding fathers knew about demagogues, and one of their biggest fears is that the citizenry would not be educated enough to spot what they called pretended patriots. These falsehoods that could come, and they wondered if the country would last, if a republic could last, if the people would suddenly come under the spell of these kinds of characters. Well, we're now facing the same kind of questions that the founders of this country worried about. Can this republic survive this kind of demagoguery and this kind of assault on the people's power and this kind of destruction of the federal government? The bad thing about that is that is what you said earlier. It's like You can't trust the government. The government itself, the idea of government, gets diminished by his actions. And so, if good government comes along, better people are in office, we're still going to be suspicious of them because we're going to have this legacy and this scar tissue that everybody alive that's voting will carry because of this Trump experience.
One of the other problems I have with politics is, one, I used to respect the Supreme Court until it became the extreme court, and now we know that if we carry a case to the extreme court, that it's going to be decided wrongly. So I don't know what to do about that. And then the other checks and balances. I mean, when we look at Congress, House or Senate, when I look at Democrats, there are a handful that I think are genuinely admirable people. Just a few of them. And then there are a few others that, why the fuck are you even in there? Why don't you just join the other side? But then when I look at Republicans, there was a time when there were Republicans that had integrity. You know, yep. Where'd that go?
When I worked in the Congress, and I was there for 10 years, before that, these people were cardboard characters or people you read about in the newspaper. When I worked in the halls of Congress, when I worked with them, when I saw both parties, and I saw the kinds of people there, that they're human beings, and they're real three-dimensional people, and some of them are quite good, and some of them are just stupid, self-serving idiots, and we've always had those in Congress. But I had a better respect for them because I saw them every day, not reading about them in the newspapers, seeing the things that they were struggling with, and seeing them as human beings that could tell a joke, and that could, you could sit down and have lunch with and stuff like that, and talk ordinary stuff. So that helped me appreciate the human quality that should be essential in all aspects of our government. And but ideology drives that out, and their public view, what they say in public is geared to their own self-aggrandizement and their self-power, and it's also geared to be safe in relationship to Donald Trump, and that's bad. But you also have people who are fighting this very hard, and they all happen to be Democrats right now. Strangely, Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, has seen the light about this Epstein thing, and she's going to vote for this release of the petition to release the material. And some are now saying that she's trying to position herself to run for president. Well, if Marjorie Taylor Greene ever becomes president of the United States, well, then we can just pack up and go someplace else. But the fact that she's turned on this issue is interesting, because these things change, and even the people who are the hardcore people, they might change. Well, there was a poet laureate that I asked to come to Congress to give during our bicentennial in 1989. I asked him to come and write a poem about Congress. His opening line was, "Here at the fulcrum of us all." And that is what Congress is supposed to be. Our fulcrum, our balancing point. And it's totally unbalanced now. And it's hanging by a thread. And it would be worse if it wasn't so evenly divided, that just if a few votes changed, it could go the other way. And they all know that. But I like the idea of thinking of Congress as our fulcrum. And it should be. But that's only going to happen when enough Americans wake up that they won't spend 77 million of them won't vote for a demagogue.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you that I was one of those who was so foolish that I thought, we've seen how that he is a criminally corrupt, incompetent, incontinent. But there's no way that they would elect him again. I mean, there's just he's only doing this to stay out of prison, and everybody knows it, right? And so when I look at the other side in that election last year, I'm like, okay, there's a handful of things that we can codify, we can get back some of our human rights. We can start, we can actually get an industry, we can get jobs, flurry of jobs out of green energy and so forth. There's a whole lot of programs and platforms that we could run that were going to be so awesome. And I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. This is awesome. And then they did him again.
Yeah. I can't get over it myself. I mean, after all this time and all the thinking and all the study of Congress and the government, the Constitution, and my respect for the people of this country and the fact that it is a powerful, big, beautiful, ugly, sophisticated, primitive country. It's all those things, and it's got to just do better. It's got to do better. This has got to turn in a different direction. But it won't be after a big political war, after culture wars. I mean, all this woke stuff and everything we're talking about. And it's going to get worse next year, as I said, mentioned, with all the bicentennial or excuse me, 250 years planning, semi-quincentennial. Nobody says semi-quincentennial, so we're calling it the 250. But this is an opportunity, and Trump's going to take that opportunity. I mean, on the 4th of July, you know what he's planning? He's planning a kickboxing tournament at the White House. And they're going to tear up the whole lawn. The company that's going to do this has already agreed to pay $700,000 to replace the grass on the White House. So if you think it's crazy now, Trump is going to go even crazier during the bicentennial or the semi-quincentennial year, the 250th. If I keep talking about bicentennials, it's because I was one of the national planners for the bicentennial back, in 1989, a long time ago. But anyhow, this 250, you're going to see a lot of craziness. And you're going to see people trying to say what America is and what America isn't. So it's going to be an opportunity for all of us to engage in a big discussion. And that's coming in an election year. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this fight. To this intellectual fight, this cultural fight, this gutter fight for politics, the demonstrations. I mean, I spoke at our local No Kings rally here in West Virginia, and I was much impressed with all the stuff that was going on around the country. I know you covered the No Kings rally in your area. I don't know where you were at the time, but I remember seeing you.
Yeah, but I didn't speak at that event, so kudos.
Well, when you speak at a rally, we had 2,000 people in our little area. The one thing you learn about speaking at a rally, you don't tell them everything you know. You give them a few points. So I spoke for 12 minutes, and that's it. Because if you speak any longer, they're wandering off anyhow. And I'm looking out at a field of people. I'm looking out at American flags. I'm looking out at unicorns and big frogs, and a lot of happy people. And this is going to make a difference.
We've only got about 12 minutes left because I don't want to be abusive of your time since you brought up 12 minutes, but I want to make the best use of that. I was an axolotl I was an inflatable axolotl for some of that. I was, and while Trump was trying overtly, so obviously trying to make it out like the No Kings rally was, what did MAGA Mike Johnson call it? The Hate America rally. Yeah. All these American flags, all these people who were carrying copies of the Constitution or quoting from it. This was definitely not a Hate America rally. So why is the Republican Party based entirely on lying now? So that's frustrating. But then Trump was trying so hard to make it out that it was going to be violent. It was like he's so desperately looking for that spark for a demonstration to become a riot, so that then he can declare martial law and just suspend the elections. That's what it seems to me.
That could still happen. There's going to be more protests. There's going to be more stuff. and he's getting farther and farther from reality. And he's got people in power. I mean, the people who are running the Justice Department, the people who are running the FBI, the people who are running the Department of Defense, uh, the people at the top. I'm not talking about the agencies itself. The people at the top are just as bad as Trump, and they're doing his bidding. So I can see them sending agent provocateurs into a peaceful rally, and then once things go bad, and once the pepper spray and the tear gas comes out, that people get arrested, people get busted in the head. But I'm old enough to remember doing that in the civil rights era, civil rights movement, and that was my first demonstrations. And people were, in the anti-Vietnam War rallies, I don't know how many times I was tear gassed in some of those rallies, and I was not being violent, nor were most of the people around me. But things did get out of hand. That
And
could
in the No
happen.
Kings
We got
thing,
to live through that. We just got to stick with it and not let that kind of stuff stop the progress of
well,
undoing Trump.
the No Kings thing that I took part in was so dangerous and so potentially volatile. I was at serious risk of being gored by an inflatable unicorn.
Yeah, they could trip over themselves because they can't see where they're going. Yeah, there's just so much. All I saw was love and respect for the kind. We had a little parade before the No Kings rally, a week before, in our little town here in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, where people lined up and carried 87 signs, each with part of the Constitution. We put the entire U.S. Constitution on signs, and then we wove down the street carrying American flags and these signs with the Constitution on it. And when I see stuff like that, and I see people willing to just come up with this on their own, that is encouraging. And in this terrible year of madness, there is such good things like this going on, and No Kings is part of it. There's lots of other stuff like that going on. So I don't want to become totally negative about this. I don't want to wring my hands and say we've lost the battle. Quite the contrary.
Yeah.
We're just starting to fight.
You mentioned earlier that we were going to win, and it would be nice to hear something encouraging, because when I look around, I look at all the ways, if these people were intelligent, how they could win. And so, fortunately, they're quite obviously not intelligent, but they are crafty, and without, what is it, countenance? Is that the word? Compunction.
They're thugs, and thugs can be beaten because all that thuggery has is thuggery. They can't win on ideas. They can't win on policy. Even the policies that Trump were popular with Trump when he got elected, his immigration stance. A lot of people think we do have an immigration problem. Of course, we could solve it by just declaring all those folks citizens, but we can't do that. But that would be the way we should do it. We haven't tried that since Ronald Reagan, when he had an amnesty and a declaration of certain people who were here a certain length of time. They were simply made citizens. We could do that again if we wanted to. But even his immigration policy, which was popular with an awful lot of people, especially in border states, that has gone wrong for him. Because again, how did he approach it? Not with any systematic policy, with thuggery.
Well, he's got concepts of a plan.
If you want to call that a plan, yeah, beat people up and deport them. And actually, the numbers show that about 500,000 people have been deported, and that's a huge number. But he wanted it 1 million, so he's still working on it. But they're using thug tactics and not systematic. They're not using immigration courts. We don't have enough immigration judges. We don't have enough procedures in place to deal with the volume that needs to be done. but it needs to be done as a legal process, not as a scare people to death because you might be next, and they might come to you next because you're working in a restaurant someplace where there's 8 or 10 other people who are immigrants working there, and that's how they're going to go after you. That's ridiculous.
When they do things like when they seize a Native American woman in Arizona and deport her to Mexico, where she's never been, right? She's Native American, and our government does that. If it can do that, if there are people that you would think, how many people were involved in that? How many people were aware that this was going on when she was arrested, when she was being detained, when she was being deported? There's dozens of people at least that are aware of the situation, and nobody spoke up to say how wrong that is.
Exactly. And that's the problem. We need more people standing up. Of course, you've got an awful lot of people in government who are standing up, and then some of them who are simply saying, the best thing I can do is to resign and show by my resignation that things are not normal in my agency. And of course, some of them are near retirement and they've just had enough. I talked to people at the No Kings rally that were recently government employees, and they were near retirement. They would have stayed. They were proud of their service to the country, but they just couldn't do it. They couldn't be in a government that was run by Donald Trump. And so their resignations were not to resign from support of government and what they were doing. It was to get away from Donald Trump and the people he puts in these agencies. He puts watchdogs everywhere. He's got people that are just, hounding you, looking over your shoulder. And if you use the wrong word, if you use the word climate change in a report, why, my God, you're liable to get fired because you used the climate change word.
If you quote Charlie Kirk,
yes,
you could get canceled, but by the people who hated cancel culture.
The biggest cancel culture going on right now is the White House.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ray, it's been a delight meeting you. We've never spoken. For just you guys, our mutual friend Phil Ferguson said that I should talk to Ray, and this is honestly the first time I've ever talked to Ray. And I would like to do that again if you're open to it. Well, I'll put out another invitation perhaps for another topic.
Happy to do that. Phil said that I really needed to meet you and that you were a great guy. And of course, I've been looking at some of your stuff on YouTube and everything like that. And we haven't even gotten into talking about atheism or anything like that. Of course, I am one. But all the stuff that you're standing for, reason and rationality, this appeals to me. So anytime I can be of assistance to you in any way I can, you can call on me. I'm happy to do so.
Well, thank you, Ray, and thank you, Phil.
Maybe Phil will watch this sometime. Who knows?
Yeah. So Phil will probably be the next interview that I have, and it's going to be on the same topic. But of course, Phil Ferguson has the financial aspect, and we're going to be talking about what has happened to the dollar. Anyway, we'll leave that for next time. Ray Smock, thank you very much, sir.
Pleasure to be with you.